Good day, this is Len Lazarick with MarylandReporter.com. We're here today at the BWI Marriott. We're doing a legislative wrap-up session with Maryland Business for Responsive Government. On the panel with me today are Andy Green, the opinion editor at the Baltimore Sun, Kenny Burns from WNAV and WBAL, and John Rydell from Fox 45 in Baltimore. And we're talking with Kim Burns, the president of MBRG, about the legislative session that just finished and what's to come ahead in potentially a special session.
Let's bring the focus back to this last session of the General Assembly and what may lie ahead. What are the betting odds on whether or not you think there's going to be a special session? Are taxes going to be in the forefront of that special session? And what kinds of taxes? Gas tax, sales tax, broadening of the base? What do you see ahead for any special session?
I think everybody agrees that they are going to come back at some point because there is so much on the line for Governor O'Malley. That and it's really, I think you need the Speaker and the Senate President to formally request, I believe, a special session to be called.
No, the governor can do it himself.
Okay. But he's made it clear that he's not about to call anyone back until there is some kind of concrete agreement between House and Senate leaders. So I guess the question is, do you start all over again? I guess you have to a certain degree because they adjourn sine die. So you have to
introduce the bills and go through hearings and all that.
Bill numbers, do everything.
I mean, at the very least, they have to do the BRFA and the tax increase, and they really do start from the beginning. And the part that the governor really didn't calculate, they had planned kind of a victory lap, all these appearances on radio and TV shows after the session. And of course, it's a time for the governor to say, this is all the good stuff we did, but every place he went, he was asked about what happened with the budget and is any of it your fault? And he was already ticked off. And now he's in a position where he's getting blamed and he doesn't think he's at fault, and all the fingers are pointing at Miller, and Miller is pointing the finger back. But the bottom line is, who cares? Right? You know, this is just about these guys come together, pass a budget that works. They could actually live with a lot of the cuts, but they wouldn't have done the cuts this way. There was a very good editorial in the Sun this morning. I don't know whether Andy or Peter wrote it, but that, you know, a lot of these cuts they actually could live with. I mean, the Republicans have been trying to get rid of the legislative scholarships for years, and I understand that the Republican caucus, Senate Republican caucus, applauded when they realized that the legislative scholarships were going to be cut. Alan Killiman is here. Alan and his father were trying to get rid of them for years.
To their enormous credit.
$11 million. But it's one of the pressure points because a lot of delegates and senators go to award ceremonies and graduations in May and give these scholarships out to constituents. And they're very, you know, a lot of them are small, you know, $1,000, $2,000, sometimes less than that. But they're very important to legislators. So it was one of those kind of like little poison pills, you know, you don't want to, you need to vote for this tax increase, otherwise you're going to lose your legislative scholarship. But, you know, for other people say, well, so what?
Yeah. To answer your question, I would say very strong chance there will be a legislative session. I mean, I think John is right that Governor O'Malley does not come out of this looking good. You know, I think those of us who are following this very closely are analyzing this in terms of the interplay between Mike Miller and Mike Bush and who is more to blame there. But I think for your average Marylander, O'Malley is the guy in charge, and if things are not going well, it must be his fault. And for somebody who is almost certainly looking to do something after this job, it really doesn't look good for Maryland not to have its act together in this way. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens in California where they have this crazy budget process. This is not the kind of thing that is supposed to happen in Maryland. And for a guy who is going to be trying to run on his good government, city stat, whatever bona fides, this is pretty embarrassing, and he is going to need to, one way or another, get these two guys together to make it happen. As for what happens in the session, I think Len is basically right. We'll get something very much like the BRFA and the income tax bill, which also had an increase in some tobacco taxes in it. I think we'll probably get that stuff in the special session. I would highly doubt that we see a sales tax increase. Governor O'Malley seems to be of the opinion that getting a sales tax increase is easy because he did that once. I think this is perhaps like how women forget how painful childbirth is, otherwise they wouldn't have more children. I don't think that's likely. I don't think there's a whole lot of appetite in the legislature for that.
He has this tremendous fondness for the sales tax,
which is odd.
And it's surprising because it unites progressives and conservatives. Progressives hate it because it's so regressive, and conservatives hate it because it's a tax.
Yeah. So anyway, to that point, broadening the base of the sales tax, which is probably, I have always thought it would be smart for Maryland to look into broadening the base and lowering the rate, just because our sales tax is one of the narrower ones in the country in terms of what it does. It's basically just a sales tax on goods, not on services. So, like when you get work done on your car, you'll notice there's a sales tax on the parts and not on the labor. So that's kind of how it breaks down. There was an attempt during the special session of 2007 to broaden the base a little bit. And at first, the base was going to be broadened to like tanning salons, mortgage services, and health clubs. And then all of a sudden,
lawn care too.
Well, lawn care was later in the queue. So first, all of the massage therapists were down in Annapolis giving shoulder rubs. Very effective lobbying technique. Lynn Brick, the health club magnate, was out doing jumping jacks in front of the Legislative Services building. So suddenly they were out, and next it was lawn care was in, and all of a sudden there were lawn tractors circling around the State House, and so lawn services was out. Auto services for a little while was in, and then the mechanics came down, that was out. They went after arcades at some point, and the people in Ocean City went crazy. And then at the last minute, computer services industry apparently didn't have any lobbyists in the room, so boom, they were the ones who were there when the music stopped. So anyway, and that was not a good experience for anybody. As you'll recall, that tax was quickly repealed. I think unless you maybe try to basically broaden it to all services at once, if you're trying to pick a few here and there, it's never going to work because people will put in lobbying pressure, heaven forbid, trying to get taxes on haircuts, because the barbers, they have a very captive audience for lobbying. So I don't see that as likely, and as much as the Sun has championed an increase in the gas tax, much to the chagrin of some people at my table, I don't think that's probably going to happen during the special session either. My guess is it winds up being pretty narrowly focused.
Well, I think the big question is, would Miller try to bring that gaming bill out one more time? Because if it doesn't pass this year, they'd have to wait 2 more years. And this is what he has really gotten behind.
He will try, and I'm certain that's part of the discussion right now.
But then and I don't know whether it was your coverage of Delegate Frank Turner saying that that in the House, they may not even have 40 votes for that gaming bill to expand to National Harbor.
Right.
Well, that's, that's just...
So if that was the case, you kind of wonder, in retrospect, you kind of wonder, why didn't you just move that bill out? And you say, you're getting all this pressure. I don't think I have the votes. Bring it out to the floor, let it die, and you say, okay, there it is. It's dead.
That was kind of a mystery. I mean,
I don't know why.
Just here's the bill. It got out of Ways and Means Committee the last afternoon of the session, late in the afternoon or whatever.
6 o'clock.
So, I suppose the speaker could have made a point by just saying, okay, you want us to vote on it? Here it is.
Yeah.
And 40 votes or something, and that would have...
Mike Miller gets in Mike Bush's head sometimes. It's, there's a real psychological game going on.
He gets in a lot of people's heads. Thanks very much for watching this legislative wrap-up session with MarylandReporter.com and Maryland Business for Responsive Government.